Welcome back to Switch to Linux. So today we are going to have a look at Gecko Linux. Gecko is definitely underappreciated. I looked at it today and I believe it was like 40 something or something on DistroWatch. Let me see, I have it over here. I have DistroWatch open. 72. Gecko Linux is 72 on DistroWatch, and it actually should be a little bit higher. I think it's a really cool little spin. Now they are very good about calling it a spin. Of course, Gecko is based on OpenSUSE, and I kind of would call it like the Linux Mint of the OpenSUSE world. What they've done is they've taken OpenSUSE and they have added a whole lot of things, just gotten the thing kind of ready for your average run-of-the-mill user. So if there's a need to be on an OpenSUSE type platform for a new Linux user or somebody experimenting with Linux and not sure if you want to go down the which branch you might want to go down through, then Gecko would be a really good option for you to have a look at. So we're going to start by going over to their page. All right, so they are at geckolinux.github.io, and what you can find over here is all the information. Now, of course, it is based on, I wonder if this is the official Linux distro of Gecko. I don't know. That's curious. But anyway, what we have is a lot of different desktop environments. We have, oh, look at that. I have a kitty came up to sit visit. Hello, people. Sorry, I wasn't cooperating today. Yeah. All right. So there's a lot of different desktop environments. I've explored this a few times before. It seems to work pretty well. I can't remember which desktop environment I looked at in the past. Knowing me, it's probably Cinnamon because that's what I went with. So we have a rolling release and we have an LTS release. This is based on, of course, OpenSUSE comes in those two. You can go with the LTS. Which one's the LTS? One's Tumbleweed, and one is Leap, I think. So Leap is based on the long term, and Tumbleweed is based on the rolling release. You can see here that they have a lot of different options. We have here the Cinnamon. We have XFCE, GNOME or GNOME. We have Plasma, Mate or Mate. Budgie, LXQT, and we do have a bare bones, which is essentially just kind of like a net install type thing. And so you can get either of those environments for either your long-term stable or your rolling release. So I went ahead and installed this. And what I went with for this test here is we're just going to walk through the Cinnamon edition of this. And so we're going to go ahead and have a look at what that looks like. And as we go through there, then what we're going to do is just see what's in there, see how it looks, see how it functions, and do all that from within the VirtualBox. So here we are booted up into the VirtualBox. I've installed this. I've not done anything else. So this is exactly what we will get when we load up Gecko here. So of course we have our Cinnamon menu down here. We have our Linux icons. Let's see, that's a workplace switcher there. Did you see that on the video? Yep, you did. Okay. Wasn't sure if you saw that on the video or not. Basic setup is very similar to the Linux Mint Cinnamon I'm used to. I think the user icon is moved in a different location. That's about it as far as the differences. And they might have one more icon down here in the bottom. I can't recall. Let's go ahead and start by seeing what's installed on this guy. And then we'll kind of move out from there. So we are recording this and live streaming the original recording of this. So people in the comments will also give me some ideas of things to look at. All right, so we have the basic icons. I'm kind of used to these. I'm not a huge fan of the Linux Mint icons. It's one of the only things in Linux Mint I don't really like. I don't like the square feel to them, and I don't know why. It's just a matter of a personal preference. Nothing bad about that one way or the other. So as far as our accessories, we have archive, calculator. So it looks like they've actually taken out some of the accessories that are in Linux Mint Cinnamon. Particularly one I use all the time is Linux Mint Cinnamon has a very wonderful USB stick formatter and a USB stick writer, and I use that all the time as I'm moving distros around. I love that little utility. Looks like it's not here, but it does look like it has a sufficient amount of tools. We can grab a screenshot, Qt4 settings. We have an archive manager, calculator, text editor. Under our graphics, we have document viewer, gthumb, image viewer, Office Draw, simple scan. We are pre-installed with Firefox and Thunderbird for our default internet and applications. We have Pigeon and Transmission. Looks like the full LibreOffice suite. I don't see the base installed. Let me load this up and see if LibreOffice base is installed. All right, so looks like, do we have database installed? I didn't see it in there, so I'm guessing maybe we don't. Yeah, it looks like our database application is not installed, so that's all right. If you need that, you can install that. Sound and video, we have Clementine. That's a cool choice. You know, if Banshee were to suddenly vanish, Banshee is my favorite one of your media players. I think I like Clementine just about as much. I really need to go through and look at all the media players again, though, and see what I might want to do with those. We have Pulse Audio and we have VLC. So we have a lot of good options there. In fact, we have a lot of good options without installing a lot of stuff. So that's pretty cool. All right, administration. We have a sysconfig editor. We have a bootloader, date and time, deconfigure editor, disks utility, files, firewall, fonts, gparted, hardware information, host names. A lot of stuff in here, which actually is very on par with an OpenSUSE install, because there's just so many settings that you could do. And that's one of the reasons why OpenSUSE, like why the Gecko team did this spin, is because they've kind of pretty much gone through there and taken care of what your most average users might want to look into. Let's go ahead and have a look at the system monitor. I want to see what the system's running on, see how resource heavy it might be. Again, we are running in software rendering mode, so that means that our CPU may be running a little bit higher. We're right now running, wow, we're still only running on 700 megabytes, though. So that looks pretty good. All right. I was under our preferences, effects, fonts. So a lot of the different systems I'd be used to. Here's your whole system settings panel, and well, that's loading recent files and things. All right, so here's the Cinnamon system settings panel that I'd be used to seeing. So this is all nice and handy. Now we have a different addition that you will find is your OpenSUSE has Yast, which is just a really nice system. In fact, I think that OpenSUSE is fields themselves are pretty good ones to learn Linux, because the Yast gives you a little bit more about what's going on under the hood with a graphical interface. So I can say that this is a very nice system. If you wanted to learn a little bit more about the ins and outs, the workings of Linux, an OpenSUSE distro would be a good option. And if you're new to Linux, I'd probably do Gecko, because it's going to work out of the box, but you can still tinker under the hood pretty well. Versus Linux Mint, although it's awesome for a new user who just needs a good computer and doesn't necessarily need to know what's going on under the hood, I'd still go with Linux Mint Cinnamon, because it just works without you having to get in there. But we have a lot of different options in here. So the software all looks pretty good. Your default options look pretty good. Let's see what kind of themes they give us. So window borders, this is a different Windows border. We have a variety of different things. What I'm not seeing, actually, is I'm not seeing previews for the window borders. So I'm not sure exactly why that is, but we are not seeing the previews for the window borders, except the two that we have. For the icons, we don't have a lot of choices by default. Controls, let's see if we see the controls. Yeah, once again, we don't see any of the images of the controls. I'm not sure why that is, if this is something related to being in the virtual box, or if this is something with the operating system itself, but I'm not seeing the previews for those. And a couple different options here for the cursors. Cursors used to be a little bit bigger deal. Although on the computer behind me here, I did update my cursors a little bit. And our desktop. So New Mix is the default. Looks like we do have good previews here. We have all the Mint ones I'd be used to seeing. Ooh, Green Submarine. Let's have a look at that. We all live in a green submarine. A green submarine. A green submarine. I really like the look of that, except I don't like the flatness of the menu. But that is pretty cool. We have a black Mate theme. I like that with you get that menu transparency. That's pretty cool. I like that. I wonder what that would look like if we go with the black Mate everywhere. The only thing I'm seeing is you see this little bit of the white sticking out the bottom there, like it doesn't render itself quite as nice. Oh, that's all right though. There's a blue submarine. So not a lot surprising in the themes. Of course, we can click over here and get more desktop themes. Let's go ahead and see what versions of everything we're running. So let me go with about, is it system? I know I saw it. Oh, duh, that's it. It's called system information. There we are. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so OpenSUSE 42. And by the way, I'm looking at OpenSUSE. They just released another beta. This is not the beta. This is the current stable. So we have Cinnamon 3.0. Isn't 3.2 the one that's current? I don't remember what's the current Cinnamon is. Linux kernels running 4.4, so our Linux kernel's a little bit older. All right, so the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to have a look at installing some software and maybe customizing the system, making it a little bit more of your own. So what are some of the things that I like to do personally? Well, one thing is I like to move things around on the down here on the taskbar area. First thing that I really like to do is I like to move my show desktop over to the bottom corner because that's what I really like on my Windows computers. I work off the desktop. When I'm neck deep in a project, I'm throwing stuff onto the desktop and I'll clean it up at the end of the day. And so what you want to do in Cinnamon is right click down on the task menu here and enter the panel edit mode. You'll see you have your nice coloration there. This will now allow you to drag and drop things around. So now I have my my show desktop over there. I never really have a need for the user icon, so you can right click and you can remove the applet. Maybe I don't need all that date information. I can configure the date. So this kind of works for all these different applets, just kind of figure out. So I can show week numbers. I can use a custom date format. So, you know, you can do a variety of different things. I just completely, totally lost my place. We're just going to go back and reconfigure that again. Some distros have a little bit better way of actually showing what you're doing, but let's just go with, see what that gets me. Okay, I'll just go ahead and use that. Not necessarily my preference, but I'll just go ahead and do that. So you'll see that that's now adjusted. Everything else is good. Now, the easiest way, if you want to add something else to your launcher down here, first I actually have to turn off my panel edit mode. Let's go ahead and toggle that guy off. Occasionally in a virtual box, it will give me a little bit more of a challenge. That rarely ever happens on a full build. So if you want to add something like maybe you want to add your email to your quick launch bar, essentially, just grab it from your menu and you can come down here and just drag it and drop it wherever you'd like. So there you go. So that's how easy it is to add things to your various panels and menus. Now, if you go back into your settings panel here, you'll see that you have what are called desklets and you have applets with Cinnamon. Now, these apply to Cinnamon, not necessarily OpenSUSE as a whole. I got to remember where they are. I actually don't use these, so I got to remember where they are. Okay, so here's your desklets and here's your applets. So your applets are things that go onto your panel at the bottom. So you can come down here and you can just look over this and see if there's something else over here that you might want. And if there is, you can just toggle the button here and it will go ahead and add that on. So maybe, for example, let's see. So there's a settings. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to right-click, add the panel there. I think you can just click over here as well. And then what that gets me is settings over here. So you have that option there. So you can use a variety of different things here to add and remove things to the panel. There are some of applets available online. Some of these could potentially break the system, so you have to be very careful when you are adding these types of things. But anyway, you can come over here and grab things like weather icons and things like that. So that's your applets. The other things are desklets. So if you think, if you're coming from a Windows type environment and you were used to, and Windows Vista and 7 had I think they call them the widgets there. These are essentially what they are. So, like I said, I think you can right click. I thought you could click that, but maybe not. So you'll see that what that does is that'll give me an item there. Of course, I moved it right underneath myself. That's never a good thing to do. We're going to right-click, and I can configure this guy. And then in the configurations, you can adjust your colors. You can adjust your formatting. You can adjust your your date setting. That's about all you can adjust in this one, at least here. There may be other places where you can adjust it as well. But there you can add that. There's a digital photo frame if you want to have images rotating around. And then, of course, just like the applets, there's some more of these you can get online, usually. Never seen that before. Okay, well, I guess we can't get them online here. I'm not sure if that's something wrong with this particular distro or spin or something with the internet. Not sure. It looks like my internet is still on, so that is that. All right, so let's go ahead and keep that there. So that's how you can do some of your customization. To install software, of course, if you're not used to the terminal, if you are used to the terminal, Control Alt and T will usually pull up a terminal in Cinnamon. But you can come up here. Nope, not your settings. I want to go into our add remove software. So now we have to enter our password. And then here we get our Yast software manager. Sure, let's go ahead and use that anyway. So then we're just going to get a list of software that we can install here. Now, a good place if you're coming from a Windows or Mac environment and you're trying out Linux, a good website is Alternative 2 because it will give you a variety of different alternatives for different software that you might be used to. All right, I'm going to cut out of this. I'll cut right back in when this is done updating the cache. This will take. All right, so here our cache is up to date, and so. The downside of this is you kind of got to know what you're looking for. So let's go ahead and do a search for bluefish. The downside of this, and this is why the downside for this one and for these types of distros is we don't have a good searchable software installer. Although we do have, actually we do. I can't say that completely. If you go over here to groups, you can search for groups and things, and so. Amusements, there's games, there's teachings, etc. Application editors. So I guess there is actually information about where it is. It's not as visual, but that's probably okay. So there's gnomes, there's libraries, networking, tests, there's productivity. Close some of these guys up. So productivity. So graphics, here's Blender, so 3D editors. So Blender's a really cool application if you've never seen that before. Visualizations. See, the downside is even with this, it's if you don't know that a package exists, like for example, if you don't know GIMP exists or you don't know what it is, this kind of makes it a little bit more difficult to work through, but it's not a huge big deal. That's why I kind of recommend getting Alternative 2, just to type in the programs that you want to replace, and it'll tell you what's there, and then you can filter by the different types. So there's CD, there's grabbers, so a variety of different ripping applications. Here's recorders, sound editors, here's video. I wonder if Handbrake is in here somewhere. So Handbrake is actually not in here. Did I spell that right? Anybody know? Did I spell that right? All right. So there you go. There's a variety of different things. So you can search through this system here. But again, if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, then you can get kind of lost in this type of installer. However, if you do know what you're looking for, this thing is way better than the graphical things. And so it's kind of what is the best world. So you can see I went through there and I hit check mark on some things, hit the accept. Now you'll see that a whole lot more things are coming on here than I selected. That's a good thing. That means that the system is checking for dependencies and installing dependencies. And so that's exactly what you want. So we're going to hit continue, and then it's going to go ahead and do its thing and install things. So I said what? I did GIMP, I did Berserio, I did Bluefish. Those are the ones I remember. Did I do any other ones? I can't remember. But it's downloading and installing packages now, so you have that good option there. So we're going to go ahead and come back to this when we are done installing. All right, so those are all installed correctly. So, and that did not take however long has lapsed. I'm recording the video as I do a live stream, so I'm jumping over there to comments. All right, so now what we should see when we go into graphics, we can see GIMP, and actually we see a nice new, if you can see it there with next to GIMP, we have a nice new software indicator. So there's my Bluefish, and what was the other one I did? Berserio. So Berserio is if you want to burn a CD, but there's actually another fun use for this. You can actually use Berserio to make a copy of a CD and convert it into an ISO file, which is actually a very handy thing. Particularly, I have somewhere around here, I have a virtual box of my old Windows 98 install from my college years, and I have all the applications. I have a Winamp installation file from back in those days. It's awesome. But I put that, I have that on a CD, but to install that on some of the computers that don't have CD drives, I just created an ISO file of it, and so I'll just drop the ISO file onto the computer and that I can use for VirtualBox. All right, so there's GIMP. We've looked at software settings. Let's go ahead and boot into Yast again. I'm most familiar with Yast on my Enlightenment system, but let's go ahead and have a look here. So when you boot into here, you have the ability to update software. You can do software management. We have hardware information, printer information. So here's system. Let's have a look at the kernel settings, because one thing I noted is that the kernel is actually pretty old. So let's go ahead and boot this in, and let's see if I can change the kernel or not. And I am out of my element, just an FYI. If you're watching this and you're really used to the system, you're like, this guy's a noob. Yes, I'm a noob. Just kind of seeing what's in here. I haven't used OpenSUSE for quite a while, so I just have to kind of get into it. So there's sudo, user and group management, system log. So you just spend some time reading through the documentation to figure out how to use some of this stuff. We do have a language installer I see up here, so if, I'm guessing that's just going to install languages. That's my take on that. Let's see. So we've looked at software. We've looked at a little bit of customization. Let's see what desktop backgrounds are shipped on this guy. And then I think we'll wrap it up. Like one of the things on Linux Mint is there's so many images. Sometimes it's hard to choose the ones that you want. So we got the classic OpenSUSE image there. Looks like this is essentially the only image that ships. I can't even go back to the old one, apparently. Or I'd have to find it in the system somewhere. All right. Well, there was Gecko. Who's Gecko for? Gecko is great for a person that wants to learn under the hood of Linux, particularly in an enterprise environment, but wants to keep the familiarity of your main operating system. Mostly because you have the options of running. This one here is Cinnamon, which has a Windows feel. You can run like a GNOME, which has more of a Mac feel, and then there's a variety of different desktop environments. Of course, under the hood, Linux is Linux. It's when you add the GNU part of it, the graphical user interface, and the desktop environments that really makes it what is different visually to us. And so the good thing about this one is there are the whole spectrum of your most popular desktop environments are available in this system. And it looks like we have, so the Cinnamon is certainly one of the ones I like. You know what did I see KDE in there? I don't remember if I saw KDE in there or not. Can't remember. But anyway, this was Gecko Linux. A really cool spin on OpenSUSE, particularly if you don't have time, if you need to run OpenSUSE and you don't have time to get it fully operational. This would be a good one to do. There's one more thing I forgot to do. Let's add some desktop icons to our desktop. That was something I forgot in my configuration. So there's our let's see, primary monitor only. We should be able to toggle these guys on. There you go. Yep. So that toggles these guys on. So click on that. And let's see if this thing can see my network. Yep. So I can see my network too. All right, so it looks like we're pretty much good to go. So thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to help support what we are doing, then you can check us out, switchedtolinux.com/support. We have currently Patreon. We have Amazon links, affiliate links, and we also have some direct PayPal stuff. So you can go ahead and take a look at our website there and have a look at the rest of the videos on the channel. So thanks for watching, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.